Hi, welcome to GRVO TV, G's Reviews, Views and Opinions. Just doing a quick video really on why have I not gone for the Sony A6000? And it's a really good question. A few people have asked me why not go for the bigger sensor over the micro four thirds of the, got the EM5 MKii here, naked with its nifty 50 on, great little package. Now there's several reasons, and I'll start with the headline feature on the A6000 is its autofocus and how wonderful and fantastic it is. Well, in my experience, it's not as great as they make out, and it certainly, I think in continuous, it's definitely better than the EM5 MKii that I'm using here. I reckon it was probably on par with my GH4. That was great in continuous shooting. I never had problems with that. Worked really well with its DFD, depth from defocus system. Don't know what that means, not a clue. But it was sort of, it seemed to be on a par with that. Now, as for speed of focusing, I had the NEX6 and it definitely wasn't as quick as my GH4 or even the GX7 that I had, and certainly not quicker than the EM5 MKii. And I know the A6000 is better, but it's no better than what I've got here in my opinion. As I say, the continuous is probably better, but when you're using these, like it's got something like 100 and God knows how many, 192 or 179 I think it is focusing points all across the screen. I barely use that system because whatever camera it is, it's all very well having all that, but it's only going to focus on what it thinks it should focus on, not what you want it to focus on. So I tend not to use that system. I'll just use a little group of focusing points or single point and shoot and recompose or whatever. So that's not really a problem for me, and the focusing system in this, when it comes to points across the screen, there's 81 I think, and you know, it works fine in that mode. But as I say, it's not something I use very often. So the autofocus and the 11 frames per second, yeah, it's nice, but it's not a deal breaker for me. This shoots at 10 frames per second, and I think even in electronic shutter form, it will actually shoot at 11 as well, not in continuous, but you get a good burst. The second reason is a simple one, and it's the flip out screen. I just love the flip out screen. It's better in my opinion than the flip up and down one. I've got both. This is the one I prefer. The third reason, as we're talking about screens, is that it's not a touch screen. Now, the best touch screen I've ever used is on the GH3 and the GH4 and the GX7, because everything's touch screen, the menu, deleting photos, absolutely everything. This isn't as good, but I've got the touch to focus, I've got touchscreen functionality, it works fine, and it's certainly better than not having any at all as the A6000. The next reason is the lack of weather sealing on the A6000. Now I'm sure with the right lens it's probably okay in a bit of a shower, but if it's not weather sealed and you have an issue, you're going to run into problems potentially, I think, with your warranty, etc. And I'd rather have a camera that is environmentally sealed, splash proof, weather sealed, whatever they want to call it. I want some kind of weather sealing, and if you see my previous videos, I'm quite happily taking this with the right lens under a shower in the garden from a sprinkler, which was a lot harsher than rain. It's been completely soaked, and I'll just better check really before I say anything. It is working absolutely fine. The next reason is the lens selection. Now, the number one lens that I want for my camera, no matter what system it is the equivalent to this. Now this is a particularly stunning lens. This is a 40 to 150, so that's equivalent to an 80 to 300. Now on a crop sensor, a 70 to 200 is absolutely fine as well. That I would happily use that. But on the Olympus, the only option, sorry, on the Sony, the only option at the moment is the FE 70 to 200 f4. Now that is an image stabilised lens, but it's only an f4. This is an f2.8, and I'm not talking about depth of field, because the depth of field 2.8 on a Micro Four Thirds is probably about the same as f4 on a crop sensor, so that's not so much of an issue. But if I want an f2.8 lens so I can shoot at a higher shutter speed. Now if I can only shoot at f4, that is going to limit me. And that lens is £1,200 for an f4. Well, you can pick up a, I know it's a used, but you can pick up a Canon 70-200 f4 metal constructed lens, great image quality, L lens, for around £350. So that to me is too expensive. This was £1,500 with the teleconverter, but I paid less than £1,000 for it, and I think that's a better value. I know it hasn't got image stabilization, but you don't need it when you've got kick-ass image stabilization like that. There's another reason for this over the A6000. The image stabilization is astounding, and you put on something like this, which is equivalent to a 50mm 1.8, image stabilized. I can shoot handheld at 1 second. I've actually got steady shots at 2 seconds. It's insanely good, and you can't get that on the A6000 because it hasn't got inbuilt image stabilization. The other one, which I don't understand, is the A6000 only goes up to 1/4000th of a second, whereas this goes up to, I think in electronic mode, like 1/16,000th of a second. And you think, well, that's not a problem, and it possibly isn't a problem on the A6000 if you haven't got the fast lenses. But if you've got an f1.8 lens and you want to shoot wide open on a sunny day, 1/4000th of a second is going to leave you in problems, and you could find yourself blowing out the whole image and not realising it. So that is a big deal for me. Size and weight, they're about the same, and I like this adaptability with mine because I can put the battery grip on, make it a big chunky camera, or I can take it all off like this and have a nice tiny little pocketable camera. Big pocket, not small pocket. The price of the A6000 is about half the price body, but because of the limitation with lenses, when I weighed the two up, it wasn't going to cost me an awful lot different in systems. The body sort of was only a small part of it, so that didn't really cause a problem for me. And of course they're equivalent to, say, this 12-35 2.8 again is only an f4, which if I'm shooting indoors in low light, I'm going to potentially run into problems. The one, or the two areas really, and they're linked, intrinsically linked, where the A6000 would be better is image quality and low light performance. And I cannot win that with a Micro Four Thirds sensor, and I happily trade that off for the other benefits that I'm getting, because when we're talking about better image quality, you're sort of talking about better than fantastic image quality. Well, okay, forget that. Am I getting fantastic image quality out of the camera? Yes. Am I getting everything I need? Yes. Have I had any issues at all with noise? No. Have I ever had anyone look at a photo and go, that's a bit noisy, or you could have done with more megapixels, or not sure about that? Absolutely not. So I think we've got to a point now where image quality is almost like, unless you're shooting professionally or you're shooting for big posters or anything like that, then we're at a stage where pretty much you'd be very hard pushed to find a camera that lacks in image quality. So for me, 16 megapixels is absolutely fine. I've got the option of this 40 megapixel high-res image, which is stunning. I've never seen anything like it, but only on stationary subjects from a tripod. So it is very limited. I'm not going to use it that often, but perfectly happy with the image quality. Again, linked to that is the big debate about depth of field and being able to get depth of field, shallow depth of field. Well, I think the sweet spot for shallow depth of field is APS-C, if I'm being honest, because it's easy to get shallow depth of field, but you've still got that little bit of leeway over and above a full frame sensor, whereby when I had full frame, quite often my shots weren't in focus. With the Micro Four Thirds, my hit rate is definitely better. I get lots more photos in focus, lots more photos to choose from, and if I need to get shallow depth of field with the lenses that I've got, I can do it. It's not difficult. You put like a 45-175 lens on this and shoot at 175mm equivalent to 350mm, then you can easily get shallow depth of field. It's not difficult. It's difficult on point and shoots, and like the Sony, the 1-inch sensor in the Sony, you're starting to struggle to get shallow depth of field because you're limited in lens choice and things like that. But with this system, with the fast lenses, the good lenses, the telephoto lenses, it's not difficult at all. It really isn't. So that for me isn't a problem. So there you go, that's my, I don't know how many, 5, 6, 7 reasons why I've chosen the EM5 over the Sony A6000. Happy with my choice. Do hanker after an OMD EM1 Mark II. I'm not going to bother with the Mark I, I've used it. It's not that much different to this. This has got more features, better image stabilization. If they bring out a Mark II OMD EM1, that's definitely the camera that I'll be getting. And then I will probably either have this as a second one, or if I can afford to, I'd keep this. But if not, this will go basically. So there you go. That's my why I've gone for the OMD EM5 Mark II over the Sony A6000. This has been GRVO TV, G's Reviews, Views and Opinions. I'll see you soon. Bye.